sometimes we think failure is a failure when it's not. So a lot of times when we belittle ourselves, we haven't really failed. It's just a different direction we're going to be successful in.
For 30 years, I've read an average of 3 hours a day. Now, I read a wide range of subjects and books and all. I read my Bible every day, and I read the paper every day, and that way I know what both sides are up to. I think it's important that we do that. You can get everything in life money will buy without character. You can't get anything that money won't buy without that character. As I mentioned in the seminar, money will buy you a house, but not a home, a companion, but not a friend, a bed, but not a good night's sleep, a good time, but not peace of mind. Money won't buy those things. Those are the things that ultimately all of us want. I don't care whether you look at it in your personal life, your family life, or your career. The fact is, that's just the golden rule. Rephrased, you can have everything in life you want if you'll just help enough other people get what they want.
Zig Ziglar was one of the world's most popular motivational speakers. Ziglar was one of 12 children raised by a widowed mother during the Great Depression. He wrote over 25 books, including See You at the Top, and inspired millions of people around the world. In this exclusive training, Ziglar shares with us how to use failures to succeed, build good relationships, and be a good parent. Special thanks to the Ziglar family for partnering with us to release this exclusive content on our YouTube channel. Enjoy.
Today, though, when you look at the stress level, it seems that the doctors are talking about stress being at all-time high levels. I mean, people are looking for answers, Zig, aren't they?
Yes, they are. As a matter of fact, in my Sunday school recently, I did a 2-week series on stress reduction. And this is a place where faith comes in, because there's a Bible verse that says all things work together for good to those who love God. That works together for good, who are called to serve according to His purpose. So when bad things happen, I just kind of smile and say, well, Lord, I don't like that a bit, but I know you got something better in store for me. I really don't sweat when things like that happen, Kim. And I believe that's made a huge difference in my life.
What happens, Zig? People, when you get off stage, people will come up to you, they'll just say, oh my gosh, what you've done for my life. And, how do you interpret, now, understand what I mean by this, people will say, oh my gosh, you've done so much for my life. Do you see a lot of these people later on where they've applied these principles and just absolutely jettisoned their life to a whole nother level? What do you experience?
Kim, one of the things that keeps me going is the fact that, as I was saying to my son on our way for this interview, this morning I was reading 3 significant emails from people who gave wonderful testimonials about how the philosophy has changed their life. One of the huge benefits I have is in my relationship building, I have people who teach me. I validate things psychologically, theologically, and physiologically before I verbalize them, write them, or record them. So I speak with a lot of confidence, not because of what comes from me, but because of what comes through me. And there's a huge difference. That lets me know that I'm not the one responsible. I had the help that was necessary to make those good things happen.
To be the speaker that you are, did you get some special training? Literally, Zig, never. I mean, you can talk to anyone out here. They've never seen anyone like you. Your approach, your style. I mean, you keep people laughing. You're finished laughing, and then a person is almost ready to cry because then you take them on a roller coaster, and it's all coming from you. I mean, from an audience perspective, you're just looking at this. You're mesmerized, and you're just saying, "How is he's pulling all these emotions out of me?"
Well, of course, we are emotional people. We don't make logical decisions. We make emotional ones. Witness the seatbelt in the automobile. For years, people fussed about having to use them. Yet on an airplane, the flight attendant says, fasten your seatbelt, and everybody fastens the seatbelt. Now, if you use them in the automobile, the odds are at least 3 to 1 better that you're going to survive a wreck. I don't care how many seatbelts you fasten on that airplane. When that sucker comes down from 30,000 feet, that seatbelt is not going to do you any good. But what I have tried to do is to be myself. My nature is that of the optimist. as I tell people, I'd go after Moby Dick in a rowboat and take the tartar sauce with me. I'd take my last $2 and buy a money belt with it. But my optimistic nature has been very helpful, and I do know for a fact that everybody enjoys humor if it's non-sexist, non-racist, and crystal clean. I tell people I only use adult language like commitment, responsibility, and dedication, and an awful lot of four-letter words like good and best and real and fair and love and things like that, So number one, the humor keeps the audience attentive. Average attention span is a little less than 9 minutes, so every 9 minutes I have them laughing. I tell folks I'm like a cross-eyed discus thrower. Don't set any records, but I do keep the crowd alert, and that's important. Then I know that in that audience there'll be a lot of people who are hurting. So I like to tell stories of encouragement so they get the impression that if this individual can survive that tragedy, then I can handle my life a little bit better. And I try to remind them that failure is an event, it's not a person, that yesterday really did end last night, that today is a brand new day, so you can make this a good day. And if you make every day a good day, then you've had a good life. And one final little thing, I know for a fact that a lot of times an apparent failure can be an outstanding success. For example, most people laugh at the Edsel automobile that are old enough to remember that it was ugly, it didn't sell many, it was a joke, and yet it turned out to be the most profitable car that the Ford Motor Company ever built. Because out of the technology they used on the Edsel came the Mustang. Out of that technology came the Taurus. So I try to encourage people by telling them, don't miss the good in a bad experience. Look for it. And that gets them to thinking. And if we can get people to thinking, then that makes a difference in their lives. One last little thing. I discovered quite by accident doing a seminar where the stage was real high and the audience was large and spread way out. I just instinctively had a feeling that if I got down on my knee, the audience was feeling that I was trying to get closer to them.
Yes, yes.
When I set the auditorium myself, I like to have them right close to the stage. I like to almost get in their laps when I talk. One of the things I enjoy most is shaking hands and having that intimate contact for a moment or two with an individual.
Do you see a difference in people in their 40s versus people in their 20s and how they receive the message?
Yes, unfortunately I do. When you're 20, you're going to live forever. You've got all of the answers. It's okay for me to do a little experimenting because, I'm bulletproof. Nothing's going to happen to me. And a lot of that can be traced to two things. Number one, parents have tried so hard to be buddies with their children that they're not becoming parents to them. They forget that the child, the youngster coming on, does not have mature judgment. And when they really love that child, they will say no if it is not in the child's long-range best interest. That's number one. And then number two, the media has gotten so raunchy. The things that are on television now and you hear on the radio are just absolutely deplorable. And one of the things I talked about in my presentation was people say, character doesn't count.
Right.
They've never asked a mother whose husband abandoned her and ran off with another woman and left her with the 3 children.
Right.
Nor have they talked to the father whose wife ran off with his best friend.
Right.
Does character count? And as I asked the audience today, I said, how many of you would hire an accountant, a CPA, or a treasurer who admitted that he or she was only relatively honest?
Right. That's right. Relatively honest.
That's right. There's some things right, some things are wrong. They're not relative. When I come back from an out-of-town trip, my wife not one time has ever asked me if I'd been relatively faithful.
You're relatively faithful.
I don't expect her to ever to ask that question either.
That is so tough. I don't know what the numbers are, Zig. Is it 50% of marriages now ending in divorce? I mean, that seems to be the ongoing number. Is that a fair thing to say?
That certainly is astronomical. There's no question about that. And one of the reasons is that Hollywood has presented a picture that is so out of touch with reality. In marriage, there's problems that arise. So if you've made the commitment before the marriage, people say, well, I fell out of love. Well, you can fall back in love by repeating the process you used when you fell in love. And like I tell folks, you buy a house, you got a 20-year mortgage on it, but after 5 years, you don't love it anymore. So you don't tell the mortgage company, look, I don't love this house anymore, so I'm not going to pay for it anymore. See, that's insanity. When we make commitment, accept responsibility, particularly when children are involved. Now, I'm not saying that a wife should stick around if her husband beats her. That's not what I'm saying, and certainly not if he abuses the children. But I'm saying that commitment and responsibility will solve a lot of problems in that marriage if they'll just keep on courting. I'm more in love with my wife, as I mentioned in my presentation today, after 54 years, by far than I was when we first got started. I know in my eyes she's more beautiful today than she was when we married. And that to me is so exciting. I cannot see enough of my wife. I just enjoy being with her. She's fun. But we court each other every day. Every day we court each other.
I've been with my wife going on 23 years. And, when I heard you say that the first time, I remember hearing you in a presentation. The word was, I love that redhead.
Yes.
There's certain phrases and things, Zig, that you say that I know for me, I have never forgotten. And I know a lot of other people have their phrases that they never forget. But that's one that most people will be able to tell you without even knowing your wife would say, he loves that redhead.
Yeah.
But I can honestly say that I've experienced that same feeling of what's happened over time with commitment.
Mm-hmm.
Of how I see my wife as the most beautiful person I've ever seen. And there is something very magical with commitment. And so many people will never have that chance, will they? They'll never really have that moment to experience what that was to hang in there and work on the relationship.
Tim, I can't begin to tell you the number of times each one of my children have said to me, Dad, I am so glad you love Mom like you do and that she loves you. Never will I forget a conversation I had with my son when he was a teenager. I said, son, if anybody were to ask you what you liked best about your dad, what would you say? Without hesitation, he'd say, Dad, the thing I like best is the fact that he loves my mom. Son, why would you say that? He said, well, Dad, I know that since you love her, you're going to treat her right. And as long as you treat her right, she's going to be with you because she sure does love you. And I'll never have to make a choice between living with you or living with Mom. Well, Kim, I had no way of knowing it, but that very day, one of his best friends had to make that choice.
Hey there, it's Mark Tim with the Ziglar family, and I sure hope you're enjoying the video from my mentor, the legendary Zig Ziglar. Because you're part of Evan's audience, we want to give you a special bonus. It's a cool little book called The Little Book of Big Quotes, packed with awesome content. This book is free just for you. Check out the description below, and it's yours. Alrighty, let's get you back to Zig.
Zig, I want to go back to Hollywood for a second. My goodness, has it changed. I mean, what's going on? I mean, I have a 10-year-old and a 6-year-old. Zig, I can't hardly stand television. I can't let them listen to regular radio stations because I can't, I'll hear a song with some rap or not, whatever. It doesn't have to be. I don't mean to indict rap music. My point of the matter is the lyrical content. Everything is sexual innuendo. I mean, what am I supposed to do? In fact, I was on a trip in Las Vegas recently. And it just stood out to me that there was a big billboard with, the sexy girls on the board. And I'm thinking if I was a parent, I'm driving down the main drag. And, you see it here in Dallas. I guess where I'm going with this is we need to pay attention to these images, both visually, audibly. Are parents not getting that? I mean, what's your read on that? The bombardment of information going into our kids and into adults?
I think that what I touched on earlier is that the child needs a parent, not a buddy. And if they don't exercise their authority, they let the kids out talking about themselves when everybody else is doing it. Short story, and my oldest daughter was a junior in high school. She came running in the house one day from school. She'd gotten a ride with some of her buddies, and she said, "Daddy, can I go to such and such a place with my friends?" I knew who those friends were because we were close. And I said, "Absolutely not." And she said, "Well, why not?" I said, "Doll, it's the wrong place with the wrong group. Well, everybody else is going. Now, Doll, you know that's not going to have any bearing on your daddy." She said, "Well, why can't he go?" I said, "Doll, let me tell you something. Those kids out there are your friends today. They might not be speaking to you tomorrow. I'm your daddy, and there's nothing on this earth that you could ever do that would cause me not to love you. You will always be in my heart, and I love you too much to permit you to go to a place where at least your reputation would be in danger, perhaps even your safety." I said, "Doll, it's the wrong place." And she stood there, and her little lips started to quiver, and then all of a sudden, she almost leaped forward and said, "Thank you, Daddy. I didn't want to go anyhow." Now, Kim, I have no idea what she told the kids out in the car.
Wow. Yeah, right.
But a lot of times these kids have been bowing to the pressure of the peer group, and they use those things. She didn't want to go. She was thrilled that I, as her father, said, "No, you can't go there. It's not in your best interest." That's what parents need to do, because you've got to combat what the media says. As I mentioned in my presentation, we listened to the wrong people. There was this TV show, and this Hollywood starlet was being interviewed, and they asked her the question, "How do you hold on to a man?" Well, here's a gal, been married so many times, she had rice marks on her face. She doesn't have a clue, not a clue as to how to hold on to a man. You need to look at the stable families, the stable marriages. You learn from success. You see, the reality is it's not just how you live, but it's how you finish that's going to make the difference. That's what people are really interested in. But a young person doesn't have the foresight. That's why mature adults need to guide them, say no at the appropriate time, and give them a reason when they get old enough to understand. Why no is the proper answer.
What would you say? You jump in the car with your nephew or something, and maybe he's 20-some years of age, and you say to him, "What kind of music are you listening to?" Just out of curiosity. He says, I'm really into this kind of music. Puts on a tape.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of profanity.
Mm-hmm.
20-some years of age. A lot of profanity, a lot of negative stuff. But on the outside, sharp young man.
Mm-hmm.
Got a good job.
Mm-hmm.
Because this recently happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if I handled this right or not, but I asked him, I said, "You know what?" I said, "You are much too sharp, to be listening to junk like that." And I said to him, I said, looking at you and how great you are and how special you are, you deserve better than that. But I didn't, I was just I really wanted to say, "Are you nuts? What are you, because, what's your thought about that, Zig?" Because kids, parents, teenagers in their 20s, you're faced with that.
Yes, you really are. Number one, parents should restrict. I think the most tragic mistake we make is to let a child have a computer or a TV set in their private room where they can be exposed to that. In 1702, Andrew Fletcher, a great Scottish patriot, made this statement, and I'm going to paraphrase him a little bit. He said, "You write the laws, let me write the music, and I will rule your country." And the music in 1702 was quite different from what it is today. See, repetition is the mother of learning. That makes it the father of action. And when you repeatedly hear these things, then you know what's going to happen. See, you're where you are and what you are because of what's going on in your mind. The mind is the gateway to the heart. And when you put that kind of garbage in the heart, trouble is on its way. The profane language that's used in everyday life, a lot of people don't realize it. One of my men that I talk with, Rabbi Daniel Lapin, one of my counselors, one of the men I asked questions about in the Old Testament, pointed out to me there's a verse in the Bible that said, "You shall not curse a deaf person." Why not? They can't hear. Because of the damage it does to the individual. Dr. Les Carter, one of the men also, a psychologist I talked with, is involved in a lot of domestic violence. And he said, Zig, I have never dealt in a case of domestic violence, physical violence, which was not preceded by verbal violence. You said this, I have said this, everybody said it. Don't get me started to talking about that, because the more I talk about it, the madder I get. Well, that person with the short fuse then acts it out, what they've just been verbalizing. We eliminate, I'm convinced of this, if we could eliminate the verbal violence on the radio, on television, on those cassettes, we would reduce physical violence dramatically. Dramatically.
What is it then? You see some of the Hollywood producers on talk shows, and they really, poo-hoo the idea that, come on, this movie isn't doing it. Come on, it isn't this. Of course, we've got the Columbine shootings and other shootings. The Columbine was the shocker. Yeah. Now we've had all the rest of them are that residual effect where well, there was another shooting.
Yeah.
I mean, what is it that we're not getting as a society, Zig? I mean, I'm getting it. I hear you loud and clear. Yeah. But there seems to be this that the movie industry, I guess it has to be because of economics, that it's such a strong economic agenda that we'll just keep flushing this stuff down on society.
Well, every destructive habit, whether it's obesity, alcoholism, drug usage, profanity, unfaithfulness, psychologist Dorothy Hicks says that the rapist in many cases started out as the peeping Tom. Yes. It gradually escalated. In my own life, for 24 years, I weighed well over 200 pounds. Now, I didn't gain all of that weight one weekend or 1 month. Over a period of time, I gradually ate a little too much, just a little here and a little there and a little here. Profanity is the same way. As a youngster, I remember when the movie Gone with the Wind came on, and a lot of folks said, oh, did you hear what Clark Gable said there at the end? And everybody said, oh, don't be silly. What harm can that do? A little later, they added another word, then another, and another, and another. And now the most filthy, vulgar language is being seen on television and heard on radio. Magazines all over the place glamorize this sort of thing. And the impact it has on our character, on our lives, is absolutely incredible.
Just creeps right in.
That's absolutely
and you
right.
don't even realize it, and it's on you. As a parent. I hear so much, and can you help me see a little clearly on this? Peer pressure with these teenagers, I hear, is just unbelievable. I mean, I talk to the PTA president, and they say, if you had to name one thing, that's the number one thing. She says, oh my God, it's the peer pressure. If my daughter belongs to one group, but she wants to be friends with another group, she's ostracized from one, all right. And then, so it's kind of a double question, Zig. I'd like for you maybe to give me a little bit of insight on what you would tell kids with peer pressure. Now, I see the same pressure in corporate America. I see the same kind of thing with someone leaving and going to lunch, maybe with are you going with the right group, the wrong group? When you look at that, when you look at what's going on in schools and peer pressure, what's going on in corporate culture with political peer pressure, what's your thought about that, Zig?
Well, number one, according to a study done in Missouri, 2/3 of a child's working vocabulary is acquired by age 3. Psychiatrist Ross Campbell says that 80% of a child's character is formed by age 5 and 90% of the personality by age 7. Now, when that youngster is raised on the wrong words and the wrong views and so forth, and so many parents use the television as the babysitter, and the parents, a lot of times, will say, well, I'm watching it with them, so I guess it's all right. That's pure baloney. I travel a great deal. 9 times out of 10, when I'm in a hotel room, the television set never comes on. There is so little there that would be of interest to me, which would give me any added value to my life. I aim everything at learning because I love to teach, and I've got to learn before I can teach. Now, this is my profession. I don't encourage others to take it to this extent. But for 30 years, I've read an average of 3 hours a day. Now, I read a wide range of subjects and books and all. I read my Bible every day, and I read the paper every day, and that way I know what both sides are up to. And I think it's important that we do that. So to begin with, early on we need to do the training. Number two, the parent needs to understand that according to all of the research, though team pressure or peer pressure is significant, the child much prefers to follow their role model, the example of the parent. The parent has the first shot, the best shot, the most important shot, the most loved shot, because if that parent, and as I mentioned in my presentation today, if they will start that child's day kindly and gently, as they did when the child was an infant, waking them up lovingly, talking to them with affection, smothering them, if they will awaken them that way all of their life, tell them what a great day it's going to be. How you can't wait until they get home so they can share with you what you learned that day. And then at night, if bedtime, as I mentioned, is 9 o'clock, at 8 o'clock you say, okay, kids, now, you got to put the cat out and bring the bicycle in, call Charlie about the assignment, get both drinks of water, take all 3 trips to the bathroom. Now's the time to do it. We're going to bed at that point. At 9 o'clock, you turn the TV off if you've been watching TV. Greatest insult to a child, just to try to put them to bed during a commercial. Now, we raised 4, so we understand that the greatest con artists on earth are those between ages 6 and 15.
Yeah, right.
They're going to try to keep you there answering silly questions.
Right.
Let them, because they will soon grow weary of that. Then you can bond with that child more than you've been able to do all day long. They'll open their hearts to you. You can guide them properly, answer their questions, but most importantly, even above that, you can demonstrate to them, you are my number one project. I love you unconditionally. This time is yours. Start the day right, end the day right. The time in between will be infinitely better.
Zig, I want you to imagine you've got a microphone in front of you, and there are 10 million 13 to 16, 18-year-old youth listening. The radio producer says, Mr. Ziglar, we only have time for you to give one statement to these kids. Well, only one thing out of your 40 years you've been doing this personal development, helping educate, coaching people worldwide. If there's only one thing that you want them to get that will have the most impact on them, Mr. Ziglar, you got 10 million listening. What would you say to them?
I say, first of all, you've just asked the impossible question. We're not one-dimensional people, and one sound bite is not really going to give that much depth. If I had to choose a word, the word would be character, because out of it comes consistency. Dr. Fukuyama wrote a book called Trust, where he had studied several cultures over several generations. And he said you can measure the progress based on the level of trust that existed within those cultures. And trust only comes from a character base. So I would start with that. But there's so many other things, as I talked about in the seminar, that, are involved. Not only that, but you got to be a smart worker. You got to learn how to get along with people. Nearly 100% of all counseling is because of relationship difficulties. Husband, wife, parent, child, teacher, student, employer, employee. So people want to be respected, and they want to be appreciated. And when we understand that, like with my wife and me, we've had disagreements like all married couples, but we've never said to each other, well, that was a stupid thing you did, or that was dumb. What an idiotic move. We've never said things like that. We never felt those things. And so that character base produces all of these things. And so I would say to that person, be dependable, be consistent, build on trust, because that's the way you develop long-term relationships. My executive assistant's been with me 24 years. There's trust, My attorney, before he retired, had been with us 27 years. Trust was developed. I knew that here was somebody that was reliable. Our CPA firm, same story. We developed that trust, and I don't have to be always wondering if they did this right or that right. Those things are so incredibly important. When I'm on the road, my wife doesn't have a concern about what I'm doing. I can call at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I know that she's going to answer that telephone. That trust is so important, and we need to build on that. There's nothing that replaces that. Now, in addition to that, of course, as human beings, we still must be productive. We've still got to work. We've still got to be a contributing member to society. And as you heard me say in the seminar a couple of 3 times, you really can't have everything in life you want if you'll just help enough other people get what they want. And let me give you an additional example, which time didn't permit in the seminar. Lou Holtz is a good friend of mine. He bought this philosophy when he was coach at Arkansas a number of years ago. He said it revolutionized his life, completely changed it. When he was at Notre Dame, he was there 11 years, and in 11 years he produced 10 head coaches. And people say, well, now, wait a minute. The coaches he produced were his very best assistant coaches. Where does that leave Lou? Let me tell you where it left him. They have a really tight network of assistant coaches in America. When he had promoted, or when the second one got that offer for a major head coaching job, other assistant coaches said, you know, Lou Holtz is training people how to be head coaches. Think I'll apply for a job with him. Bob Davie was the defensive coordinator at Texas A&M. He went to work with Lou for the same at the same position. Now, guess who's the head coach at Notre Dame today? Absolutely. Well, so in other words, number one, he was able to replace his best assistant coaches with equally good, sometimes better assistant coaches. But the huge bonus came in this package. Those new coaches brought all of their high school contacts with them. His recruiting was taken care of. I don't care whether you look at it in your personal life, your family life, or your career. The fact is, that's just the golden rule rephrased. You can have everything in life you want if you'll just help enough other people get what they want.
If a person is 5'6", very unlikely they'll play in the NBA. Is that a fair thing to say? You'd be one rare diamond in the rough if you're 5'6". Are there, from a personality style standpoint, Zig, you deal with the analytical types, you deal with the gregarious, socializer type, you deal with, those director types, all these different types of personalities. Do you, and then, if you ask people in the audience, what do you do, you got, want to say, well, one might be a doctor, one might be an attorney, one might be, what I'm saying? It's just all these diverse different careers. But then you ask them, if you won the lottery today, how many, if you won the lottery today, would quit your job? You'd see most of those hands go up.
Yeah.
It's like, what's the disconnect here? What is the disconnect?
Well, they're living what I would say a life out of balance because they think that money will buy them everything they really want. I dealt with that rather extensively in the seminar itself. And money is significant, but I guarantee you I don't accept a speaking engagement for the money involved. And any of our corporate clients who are watching this, don't misunderstand. I'm still going to keep accepting them, those honorariums. But the reality is there are a lot of them I won't accept. For example, I won't accept an engagement following a cocktail party. See, I believe I've got something to say. My mail indicates that that's true. I'm not going to go and accept a fee for talking to a bunch of drunks because I know in my own heart and mind I can't earn the fee because I don't have the mind of the people there with me. You can get everything in life money will buy without character. You can't get anything that money won't buy without that character. as I mentioned in the seminar, money will buy you a house, but not a home, a companion, but not a friend, a bed, but not a good night's sleep, a good time, but not peace of mind. Money won't buy those things. Those are the things that ultimately all of us want. And then, you know, as I said, one of these days we will die. And the research clearly indicates that we're going to be dead a lot longer than we were alive. So I've got a long-range goal, and fortunately, I know that I'll reach that goal. I know where I'll spend my eternity. That enables me to deal with the pressures of the day. I go to the Cooper Clinic about every 18 months for my physical. One of the questions they always ask, Dr. Cooper used to laugh at this, he said, "Do you rate your job stressful, not stressful? How do you rate it?" I say, "Not stressful." He just smiles and says that you got one of the most stressful jobs in the world, the deadlines, the travel, and all that sort of stuff. I said, "Ken, I wish you hadn't told me that. I didn't realize that it was stressful. I'm having too much fun, you know, to even consider it stressful." These people that look at money as the solution to all of their problems and bringing happiness, research indicates just the opposite. It absolutely does not. Frequently, it causes more problems, you know, than it solves. You get a different class of friends. You live in a different neighborhood. In many cases, your lifestyle is different. And yet, research on millionaires, the people who are worth over $1 million and have a lot of income, they live in a neighborhood, they could afford a much better one. They'll drive a car 5 or 6 years, you know. Their favorite food is steak. They live a very boring lifestyle. However, they are happily married to the same wife of many, many years. And research, incidentally, is pretty conclusive. 1949, Harvard Business School, their first graduating class, only had men in it. Then CNN did a study on them. A book was written about them. 49% of those men in their lives achieved outstanding success, either as vice presidents, or chairman of the board of major corporations. The question was asked, how do you account for this? They said 3 things. Number 1, everything we did was with integrity. Number 2, our wives were enormously helpful. They were very bright. We could talk about our business. We bounced things off their heads. They gave us different insights, and it was just very helpful. Number 3, they said we were risk takers, but not gamblers. And to hitchhike on that in my own life, my youngest daughter is the editor of my books. She is by far the best one I have ever had. And it's just she's so much fun to work with. But being obviously much younger than I and female, you see, she brings an entirely different perspective. And she knows me like the back of her hand. And she knows where my heart is, and I know where her heart is. So when she softens the edges, on occasion, I have been known to get a little dogmatic. I know you find that hard to believe, but I really am. And she can smooth the edges. Now, I do 95% of all the creative stuff. But the way she smooths it off and brings it down to this generation as well, it's absolutely beautiful. We all need help. I have a wall of gratitude with 25 men and women on it. These men and women were placed in my life by God along the way to give me the guidance and direction I needed. My dad died when I was 5. There were 8 of us still at home. I'm the 10th of 12 children. But those people came into my life, and I listened to what they had to say. It's been incredibly helpful.
Finish this sentence. Most people would be surprised to know that Zig Ziglar
lives a very conservative lifestyle. I haven't bought a new car in years. I let somebody else drive it the first couple of years, and then I take advantage of that. I'm uncomfortable paying as much as $25 for an entree. I'll wait until the suits go on sale. Now, because of that, and one small incident, several years ago, I was buying shampoo by the gallon. I was in the bathroom getting ready to take a shower. I was pouring the shampoo in a smaller bottle, and I spilled some of it there in the lavatory. And I reached down, I picked it up, and I put it on my hair. And about that time, my son came in. He said, "Dad, what happened to your hair?" And I said, "Well," and I told him what I'd done, you know. He said, "Dad, one thing about it, nobody will ever accuse you of being wasteful." I said, "Son, let me tell you something. You know that little Thunderbird automobile you got out there parked in the driveway? You're driving it because of little things like this. I still turn the lights out in a hotel room when I leave. I just don't like waste. I don't think that's the wise thing to do. And if every citizen in America followed the same process, we wouldn't have the power shortages we've got today or the fuel shortages we've got today. We really wouldn't. We waste more than we use."
Zig, what do you hope to accomplish with your presentation?
Kim, without even having to think about it or hesitate in answering, any presentation I give, my major objective is to give every person in that audience hope, legitimate hope with instructions. I never make a promise unless I give a plan that their future can be infinitely better than their past. Alfred Adler, the psychiatrist, said that hope is the foundational quality of all change. Hope's a great activator. The youngster with no hope of passing won't study. I mean, why bother? The salesperson with no hope of making a sale won't make the call. I mean, what's the use? The couple whose marriage is in trouble and they have no hope of salvaging the marriage won't go to counseling or do anything else. I mean, why waste that time? So hope is the activator. Dr. John Maxwell says if there's hope in the future, there's power in the present. Dr. Tony Campola says that your past is important because it brought you to where you are. But as important as your past is, it is not nearly as important as the way you see your future. And I understand. I know that you were brutalized as a child. You were mistreated. You were raised in poverty. I mean, I know all about all the terrible problems you've had in the past, but let me say it again. As important and as traumatic as those things were, they're still not as important as the way you see your future. Because the way you see your future determines your thinking today. Your thinking today determines your performance today. And your performance today is going to determine your performance tomorrow. And you put them all together, and that's what determines your future. And the bottom line with all of this is the fact that encouragement is the fuel upon which hope runs. So on a daily basis, you need to listen to the good inspirational messages in Automobile University.
Automobile University.
Absolutely, because see, tomorrow's headlines will drown out today's inspiration. So you need that inspiration every day. So the next time you're caught in a traffic jam, instead of stomping your foot and slapping the horn and complaining at the traffic, you'll say, "Oh boy, look at that traffic jam. Man alive, that's going to take me 20 extra minutes. And in 20 minutes, I can pick up 5 new vocabulary words. I can learn a new investment strategy. I can learn a new management technique. Man alive, what an opportunity." I was a visiting scholar at the University of Southern California for 2 years, and they were doing some studies, and here's what they found. 3 years in your automobile, if you drive 12,000 miles a year, and you live in a congested area, in those 3 years, you can acquire the equivalent of 2 years of college education in your automobile. So yes, I try to generate hope and give them examples which will give them that encouragement. Then I encourage them to take these steps to keep the hope going. Primarily because Stanford University, and I learned this in Automobile University, their studies showed that 95% of all of the people who buy ideas, concepts, and so forth are unable to follow through because they do not have the resources. The resources are the books, the tapes, and the seminars. One last thought. We literally get over 100 times as many letters and emails and faxes from people saying, listening to your tapes and reading your books changed my life, as we do from people who say, your speech changed my life.
Yes.
Because that repetition, when you listen to something enough times that you can finish the sentence, then it becomes self-talk. That's when it has power. Boy Scouts, whom I'm privileged to serve on their board of advisors for several years now, are dramatically more successful than the general population. Because, every meeting on my honor, I will do my best. The Scout law, the Scout oath, the Scout motto, all are self-talk that really makes a difference in a person's lives. When they understand, yes, you can handle your own attitude. That's up to you. You can do something about that attitude. You can change it for the better. You can grow. And I always say, and you can make radical changes in minute steps. New word a day, in 5 years, you can talk to just about anybody about just about anything. Georgetown Medical School did a study and learned that in 100% of the cases, no exception, that when your vocabulary goes up, your IQ goes up. Those are the things I share with every audience.
That's powerful. Zig, I appreciate this time.
It's been
Your
marvelous
insights are
for
just
me.
tremendous. Thank you for so much. Let me just say on behalf of millions of people, so much for what you've brought to all of our lives. You're a tremendous inspiration, and we appreciate you more than you could possibly fathom.
God's been awfully good to me, Kim, and I think the reason God let me struggle for 45 years is so that when things started to happen, I wouldn't be confused about who was responsible. And Kim, I really am not.
Welcome to the lunch, and what I'd like to do is to say we're going to start a few minutes early because Zig needs to catch a plane. So we're going to go for about 15 minutes, and what I've done is collected some questions. Thank you for those of you that turned those questions in, and we'll just have some casual conversation. I'd like to just start off by saying I think we have today two of the most brilliant minds in personal development living today. Would you all agree with that? And what I'd like to do is to start off with one question for Jim and then one for Zig, and then we'll kind of go back and forth, and if you guys both want to answer the questions, you can. First question to Jim is, what is true success?
Well, somebody once said to me, success isn't everything, and I think what they meant was money isn't everything, but that's a good note to make. Success is everything. First, to succeed to survive, and then to succeed to flourish in every part of your life. So success is everything. First, we must take the seasons and learn how to use them with the seed, the soil, the sunshine, and the rain to, sustain ourselves and our family. Then we must use the economy to succeed. We must use the community, whatever is around us. Gather up all the education we can in order to succeed. Good question to ask mature people. If you could do better, should you? And I think almost everybody would answer that question in the positive. If you could improve your health, shouldn't you do that? If you could learn more, shouldn't you do that? If you could earn more and share more, shouldn't you do that? And I think that's really what success is all about. It's not just a destination that's set for everybody to try to go for. It's like Zig said today, improving in every area of your life to see if you can't, with satisfaction at the end of the day, at the end of the week, at the end of the month, at the end of the year, say, I have made excellent progress this year for myself, my family, my business, my career, my health. And I think that kind of success everybody realizes is legitimate. It's something we should strive for. There's an interesting phrase in the Bible that says, strive for perfection. Not quite giving us the idea that we could reach it, but the key is in the striving. To be better today than yesterday, better this year than last year. Our speech, our language, our health, everything we can possibly think of. So,
Good.
It is good to succeed.
Thanks, Jim. How about this one for you, Zig? How do you know you have a good goal? How about that one?
Well, a good goal, number one, is your goal. You don't let somebody else set it for you, as so often happens. Number two, you ask the question, how does this goal fit in with the rest of my game plan? will this take me closer to or further from my major objective? Number 3, you would ask the question, is it morally right and fair to everyone concerned? Then I always ask an additional question. I have a little acrostic, GOALS, and it simply says, godly objectives assure lasting success. So I always do a lot of praying. If it's, I don't pray about which clothes I should wear today. I just ask the redhead about that. But I do pray about those things that, really are significant. And if you can't commit yourself emotionally to reach that goal, then it is not a good goal.
Good. How about one for either one of you? If you had one wish for mankind, what would that be? Either one of you want to take that one on?
Well, I think the greatest wish for mankind and each individual included in mankind is to have a sense of awareness of both things physical and things spiritual, so that you could combine all of your learning into a lifetime and see what all you can become. I think that's it, the gift of awareness, the gift of discovery, the gift of finding out more and more about life, about God, about people, about politics, and about economy, possibilities, opportunities. So probably the greatest gift is the gift of discovery.
Any thoughts on that?
Well, of course, I'm highly prejudiced, As a Christian, if I were to wish anything, it would that others would come to know and experience the joy, the excitement, the satisfaction, the peace, the security that I feel. The Bible says all things work together for good to those who love God, who are called to serve according to His purpose. And what that enables me to do when I stub my toe, when, quote, things happen that I don't like, I instinctively think, well, I wonder what God's got up His sleeve for this. I know it's better around the corner. Traditionally, sometimes we think failure is a failure when it's not. For example, the Edsel motor car, everybody thought it was a failure. But the technology that came out of that produced the Mustang and then later the Taurus. So a lot of times when we belittle ourselves, we haven't really failed. It's just a different direction we're going to be successful in. As you know, I'm the optimist. And
How about this one, Jim? What keeps expanding your vision for the future?
Well, for me personally, it's just to keep doing what I've, been called to do or found the opportunity to do. Both Zig Ziglar, Jim Rohn have this incredible, unbelievable opportunity from where we came from to where we are to spend a big share of our lives, touching somebody else's life, making a contribution, writing books, putting it on video, putting it on cassettes, CDs, whatever manner possible, because ideas can make such an incredible difference in someone's life. And then we have the unusual opportunity of having our name appear in someone's testimonial. And already today, someone says, Mr. Rohn, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 30 years ago, I attended your seminar, sat in a class, talked to you personally, and here's what's happened to me, my family, my future, my health. And for Zig and I think that's almost overwhelming in terms of opportunity to make a contribution to somebody else's life. Investing life into life, you can't have a better experience than that. And for me, it's just hopefully it'll continue, forever and ever. My father lived to be 93, and so Zig, I'm going to try to sail right on by that, see if I can't have a good long life, sharing ideas, talking about things that matter with people who care.
I got one for you, Zig, on kids. How about this one? What are the best ideas you have for raising kids today? Today. Emphasis on today. Okay.
No, what's the best idea for raising kids? No question about it in my mind. Number one, you love them unconditionally. Number two, you start each day with them properly and end each day with them properly. By that I mean you awaken your children as you awakened your newborn babe, lovingly, kindly, gently, affectionately, talking to them every step of the way. And when the kids get older, we have a tendency to bang on the door and say, "Get up, time to go." But awaken them slowly and gently and say, "You're going to have a wonderful day. You're going to learn some things. I can't wait for this evening when you can tell me all the fun you had and what you learned today. Then at night, if bedtime is 9 o'clock, at 8 o'clock, you say, okay, 9 o'clock we go to bed. You need to put the dog out and bring the bicycle in, call Charlie about the assignment, get both drinks of water, take all 3 trips to the bathroom, because at 9 o'clock we go to bed. At 9 o'clock you cut the TV off, you lead them to the bedroom, and you spend a precious few moments with them. You bond with your child more the last few minutes than you do have all day long. And if you start the day right and end the day right, time in between is going to be a lot better. You're demonstrating your love for them by giving them your time.
I got a question for both of you. How about this one? If you had to live your life over, what's one thing that you would do differently? I want to think about that one for a minute. One thing you'd do differently, Jim.
You know, I'd try to learn a lot quicker than I did. I mean, some things came a little slow. I caught on to goal setting right away, but some things on personal development, you know, giving up my blame list, really taking a look at myself, making all those changes. I would have hoped I could have accelerated a lot faster than I did. But then once you reach a certain place, as Zig knows, you finally start gaining momentum. And Zig talked about all those years, right, the struggling years, and then finally, when the breakthrough came, the momentum and the success after that would just come piling out, right? Things just started incredibly happening. So that's one thing I would change. I should have listened to my mother and my father earlier, sooner, and I think I could have had, about another 20 extra glorious years.
How about you, Zig? One thing you would have done differently?
Fortunately, a lady answered that question for me a number of years ago. I wish I'd remembered her name. I wouldn't do anything differently. Because what she said was, if I changed anything, I might not be where I am. And I really like where I am. I'm more excited about my life than I've ever been in my life. Somebody asked me the other day, said, what keeps you going? And I said, the U.S. mail. They said, what? I said, I get the letters, I get the email, I get all of those things. And that's the reason I would not change anything. I love my relationship with my family. I love my profession, what I'm doing. I love to speak. I love to write. I love to do the research. I love to interchange with people. So no, I wouldn't change a thing.
Okay, last question. What would you say, Jim? What basis does one use to create their major definite purpose? On what basis?
I think that, that gathers up over time. You ask kids what they want to be at first, right? And it's, a whole variety of things. And after a while, that says, well, no, I'm not that interested in that. That sort of slips away. So it takes a while to finally develop an ultimate purpose in life. I think the grand purpose is to be, uniquely successful in every area of your life. But I would say let it unfold. You might spend several years doing one thing, and certainly a door of opportunity will open, and now that becomes something big. You couldn't have seen that purpose 10 years earlier, and now suddenly by circumstance and by meeting someone, doors open that you never thought were going to open. Now some even larger purpose than you dreamed of before is now available.
How about you, Zig? What's the basis? Get it?
My mission statement is rather presumptuous, to be the difference maker in the personal, family, and professional lives of enough people to make a positive difference in the world. Now, that does sound presumptuous until you remember the story of the grandfather walking his grandson on the beach, and every few steps he would reach down, the grandfather would, and throw a sand dollar out to sea. He did that quite a little while, and the grandson said, Granddaddy, what are you doing? He said, he said, son, these sand dollars are living organisms. If I don't throw them out to sea, they will die in the hot sun. Grandson said, but Granddaddy, there's so many of them. What difference does it make? The grandfather reached down, picked up one, threw it out to sea, and said, for this one, it makes all the difference in the world. I have 25 people on my wall of gratitude who made a difference in my life, and I like to be the difference maker. God's blessed me incredibly. My works are now in 37 languages. My tapes are all over the world. My books are all over the world, almost. And it's just an unbelievable thrill to be able to do what I'm doing. Mine is just to keep on studying, keep on learning, keep on trying to get better at what I do.
Let's give these two gentlemen a round of applause.
All right. Thank
Two of the greatest. Two of the greatest. Two of the greatest. Thank you.
To watch another amazing Zig Ziglar video, check it out right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
There is a dramatic difference between positive thinking and positive believing. A lot of times people get the impression that we think that us positive thinkers that can just do anything. Had a guy ask me one time, he said,